Greetings from Accra and welcome to African Legacy. The passport. Africans have been known to be inventors, conquerors, farmers, architects, botanists, scientists, etc. But there is one thing that always comes to the fold. They are explorers, travelers, adventurers, you name it, with the skill of adapting as fast as they can in any foreign land, be it learning the language or tapping into their entrepreneurial DNA in creating a vibrant market wherever they find themselves. Since 1996, it is said over 76,000 Africans have perished trekking across the Sahara Desert with the false notification there are green pastures out of the African continent. Little do they know. Besides, mankind has been traveling the world without giving it a second's thought on how the world had to depend on something called the passport as a prerequisite before travel. With COVID-19 hovering above our heads, the question arose as to why do we need a passport, and when did we start feeding this addiction for passports? King Edward I, 1272 to 1307 of England, is said to have commenced the trend of Parliament. The first summons by King Edward I to Parliament, to parley or to speak, was executed on 13th November 1295. On this date, the summoned nobles, churchmen, representatives from each county, the knights of the shires, as well as 2 representatives from each city or town, burgesses, assembled twice a year to ensure the king's writ is enforced with zeal to ensure the subjects pay their taxes. But in order for the summoned team to come to London, they were forced to obtain a pass to allow them to get through the city walls, the gates, and the ports, hence the coining of the name passport. Today, the passport is an official travel document issued by a country or a kingdom certifying the identity of the nationality of the bearer. It has been surmised by Grandmama and Grandpapa Africa that the idea or the notion of the passport has been around long before the European continent started to grow some teeth. It is indicated in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Nehemiah 2, verses 7 to 9, that around 450 BC, where King Artaxerxes I of Persia requested permission or a visa to travel to Judea, the king was granted the permission to stay in Judea for the required time in the form of a document or letter which could be presented to the government of Judea upon entry to the city beyond the rivers. If you recall one of our videos, the word paper originated from Egypt, the papyrus. That's how the word paper came from. It is said as far back as January 24th, 722 AD, an example of an exhibit of a permit or visa or passport indicating travel journey history from Hermopolis Magna in Egypt was recorded on a papyrus roll and displayed in a museum in Berlin in April 2019. On one occasion, a renowned superintendent, Mudra Hayasika in Hindi, in India in 3rd century BCE, is quoted as complaining about issuing passes at the rate of 1 masha, which is a traditional unit of mass, per pass to enter and exit the country. Just take this in. This was in the 3rd century BCE in India. It is also said in the Western Han, around 202 BEC to 220 CE, the dynasty and the Qin dynasty, passports or passes were a prerequisite for travel from one county or region to the next. In China, the passport, also called xuan, was quite detailed in describing the bearer, where children over a year old were also required to have passports. Oh, there is more. The Islamic countries. We are referring to countries stretching from the current Middle East right across the Western Sahara. The Kingdom of Mali, for instance, referred to the passport as Bara'a. And would you believe the Bara'a contained the bearer's taxes paid to date? Persons who are behind in payment or in paying their taxes were not permitted to travel to other Muslim states or other Muslim countries. Before you come at me in the comments section with complaints, just bear in mind there are countries today executing such practices. If you are in arrears with the tax authorities even today, you will be stopped at the airport or seaport by the immigration control or at the immigration control point, where you will be politely requested with a nice smile to cough up the $10,000, or you shall not be allowed to even travel out of the country. The beautiful island of Singapore or country is a prime example. So if you are a resident in Singapore, please ensure you keep up to date with your taxes to prevent further isolation. Grandpapa and Grandmama have always maintained passports have been around for millenniums on the African continent and throughout the Islamic world, as mentioned in the Bible's Old Testament. On balance, it is probably also mentioned in the Quran as the Bara'ah. As Europe began to grow wings at the turn of the century, it is surmised that King Henry V of England legalized the passports as part of the Act of Parliament 1414. Meanwhile, it wasn't until World War I when European governments introduced border passports as a requirement to monitor immigration or immigration. In 1920, it is said the League of Nations held a conference pertaining to passports, the Paris Conference on Passports and Customs, Formalities, and Through Tickets, where the guidelines and the design of the passports booklet was agreed. Would you believe the League of Nations recommended the passports to be issued in the French language because it was believed French was the language of diplomacy at that time? That explains why, even though passports are issued in a country's chosen language, you would always see a prescription also in French. A passport is an internationally agreed document suitable for international travel, which has gone through changes since its inception. In the 1980s, under the guise of the International Civil Aviation Organization, passports became machine readable. Now, biometrics or digitalization have been introduced, or microprocessors, into passports, with an embedded microchip which enables the authentication of the bearer via the inserted smart card or chip. Guess what? In 1998, Malaysia was the first country in the world to issue biometric passports or e-passports. Fancy that. Now things get muddy a bit because a passport by right permits the bearer to freely, without prejudice, to enter and exit the country that issued the passport, except the UK. It is said the UK, due to its colonial past, has 6 different categories of a British passport, as prescribed in the British Nationality Act of 1981, which has been in force since 1st of January 1983. There is the British citizen for those born on the British Isles or those with strong ties to Britain via grandparents who were born on the British Isles may have the right of abode, thus are entitled to freely enter and exit the mainland. Second, there is the British Overseas Passport, or the British Overseas Territories Citizens Passport, British Overseas Citizens, British Nationals Overseas, British Subjects, British Protectorate and Persons. I get dizzy looking at this. Today, countries within the African continent, all 55 of them, are separated by borders, erected as part of the legacy of colonialism and conflict. However, going forward, changes are on the horizon. The African Union is set to issue a single passport for all the countries within the African Union, with the aim to realize a visa-free travel for all Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora whose countries are part of the African Union. The roll out of a single African Union passport for Africans is behind schedule. It's only a matter of time. Kudos to the African Union for working on getting the whole African continent a single passport. It's about time. The likes of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia would be smiling on Africa once this rollout is finalized. And let's not forget, one of Africa's iconic emperors, Mansa Kanka Musa, would also roar in his grave once this strategic milestone is reached. There were no artificial borders up when Emperor Mansa Kanka Musa took his elaborate pilgrimage to Mecca from Timbuktu, Mali, in 1324. And the free movement of goods, services, and people was normal, just as it's been emulated and implemented by the EU or the European Union today. The passport is just a traveling document, but there is a lot of national pride and at times a level of pomposity linked to it, depending on one's nationality. For instance, on 26th of January 2018, a French journalist by the name of Caroline Broué had the temerity to ask one of Africa's iconic best-selling authors, Madamoiselle Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, has Nigeria got bookstores or libraries? The author responded with grace by saying, "We do, shockingly." As our Nigerian cousins would probably have responded. Can you imagine being asked such a question? But the African woman, the African writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, did not lose her cool, but retorted with class, we do shockingly, and held her own. Throughout the interview, the disdain treatment came about because she is a Nigerian or holds a Nigerian passport. How ignoramus. Africans who frequently travel have a story or two to tell about being treated with disdain, sadly at times, on the African continent and abroad. In general, Africans are tired of being singled out. When they arrive at a foreign port or a foreign country, tired of being asked superfluous questions by immigration officers, tired of being disrespected, and most of all, tired of not being able to travel freely to a neighboring African country without the hassle of carrying a passport or a visa. Let's hope the African Union passport for all Africans would be the start of great things to come for the future. It is no surprise today Africans want the same thing as everybody else. They also want a good home for their loved ones, for their families. They want good surroundings to grow up as well. Africans also like to explore and to travel, just like lots of Italians, lots of Irish, lots of Europeans to seek fortune. All Africans want, or all Africans deserve, is to be treated fairly. We are also living in difficult times. COVID-19 has made travel excruciatingly difficult. This is also the time for African leaders to wake up, start putting measures into place to ensure Africans are not an afterthought, especially with the creation of the vaccine. So far, we have vaccines from the UK, vaccine, which is the UK AstraZeneca. We have vaccines from the States, Pfizer. We have vaccines from Russia. We don't have any vaccine from the African continent. This is terribly shameful. I hope, as of now, this serves as a lesson learned for Africans to also take charge, or for African leaders to ensure systems are in place to make sure Africans are also taken care of in case of any pandemic in the future. Stay safe. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.